I had the privilege of knowing Gerald Wilkins from 1960 until his death. When I first began the municipal government business, Gerald was one of the first persons I met outside of my own city. There were a lot of outstanding managers then, but Gerald mentored me by taking as much time and effort as I asked of him to assist. When I was a new manager in 1968, Gerald was always there to take my calls and give me excellent advice on how to resolve problems confronting me. He never had to worry about his advice because he had experienced it all. He was willingly sharing his knowledge. I remember one particularly difficult time I was going through when Gerald called out of the blue telling me he had heard about my problem and that he would be willing to do whatever it took to help me. That was Gerald. He was always there whether you asked him to be or not. Gerald was one of the most honest persons I knew. He was instrumental in developing the city manager circuit rider program, from which a lot of Oklahoma managers evolved. He was always doing whatever it took to assist any manager with their efforts. I am pleased that a person like Gerald would be honored with an award in his name. I believe that to be nominated for such an award would be a high honor, and to win it would be the highlight of one's career.
I met Gerald Wilkins in 1974. I was fresh out of grad school and working at the Oklahoma Office of Community Affairs and Planning as a grant administrator, and very desperately wanting to become a city manager. Gerald had been hired to develop the circuit riding city managers program for the state of Oklahoma, and obviously that got my attention. I can remember to this day our first conversation when we met. I'd known of Gerald from his reputation earlier at CMAO conferences that I attended in Stillwater while in grad school, but it didn't prepare me for knowing the man himself. He listened to me patiently as I gushed enthusiastically about my desire to be a city manager. And that genuine, warm smile of his as he reached out his hand, he said, "Let's just make a deal here. If you'll help me become a good employee for the state of Oklahoma, I'll help you every way I can to become a good city manager." We shook hands that day on a totally one-sided deal that forever impressed upon my life the professionalism of Gerald Wilkins. After the next few months, Gerald mentored me and tutored me as I looked for opportunities around the state of Oklahoma to become a city manager. And indeed, one day I needed his help desperately. The city of Blackwell called and wanted to interview me about a vacant position. It didn't make any difference that the job in Blackwell was a hybrid city manager charter form of government with a city commission, had been involved in a very fractious grand jury, and that had divided the city politically and socially, and also had severe financial problems. I wanted to be a city manager. And Gerald helped me as I got prepared for the interview in his usual way of being very calm, very analytical, very passive when it came to his voice, made you ask the difficult questions, look at all the goods and the bad, make up your own mind. He never tried to influence you or bias you in that way with his own opinions. He gave me a lot of tips on interviewing, positions to take, questions to ask, and which to be firm on, which to give on. And naturally, as a 24-year-old overzealous candidate his most important thing in life was to become a city manager, I forgot all of it at the interview. But fortunately, his influence on me must have taken somewhat, because I was hired as the city manager of Blackwell in early 1975. But Gerald wasn't done. He and his lovely wife, Marguerite, had become close friends of Nancy and mine, and she, in fact, had helped Nancy understand what might be in store for her as a city manager's wife. And those types of touches were, again, just part of the team that you got and the kind of person that Gerald was. Sure enough, as we left for Blackwell, my interaction with Gerald waned, but his influence still was there. He had one more thing to do. On the night of my first city commission meeting in Blackwell in April of 1975, it coincided with the same time we found out that my wife was pregnant with her first child. Our son Ryan was born in December of 1975, and within just a few days he'd received a handwritten letter from Uncle Jerry, espousing and encouraging him to be patient with his new parents, and secondly, espousing the great virtues of being an American and what it meant to be a citizen of this great country. But most importantly, and ones that we remember to this day, is the importance of God in our newborn's life. Gerald Wilkins was a great city manager. He was a wonderful mentor and tutor. He was the example of how to do things the right way. And that's what makes the Gerald Wilkins Award special, because a giant in municipal government in Oklahoma placed his print on this state, and that's what that award represents. And anyone that gets it should regard it with the highest of honors.
It has been more than 50 years since the late 1960s when I first walked into a room where Gerald Wilkins was. At the time, I didn't know who he was, yet it took only seconds to be drawn to where others were gathered around him. He had whatever it is, charm, magnetism, charisma, allure, that draws others to him. I knew immediately that there stood a confident, debonair, engaging man whom I should seek to emulate to become the city manager I hoped to be. During the next 3 decades, I learned over and over again that my first inclination was right. Whatever the event, whatever the circumstance, wherever he was, people looked to and followed his steady actions and well-conceived ideas on how to serve and merit public support for programs and plans. And he did so without seeking attention, fame, or prestige for himself. He never lectured, he guided. He never sought acclaim for his successes, but made others feel superior in theirs. He was the epitome of what a city manager should seek to become, both then and today.
Recognition from your peers is very special in any profession, and certainly receiving the Gerald Wilkins City Management Award in 2007 from the City Management Association of Oklahoma was definitely one of the highlights of my career. I think all of us are proud of our calling to public service, and receiving this recognition from people who know what it means to be a local government professional is something that I'll always treasure. We have a dynamic, progressive community here in Edmond, and quite frankly, it's humbling to be perceived as having played some part, have some involvement in some of the successes. And I would encourage my professional colleagues in Oklahoma to help keep this award alive by thinking of deserving peers that they could nominate for this professional recognition as we move into future years.